Hey there, interwebs, and welcome to episode 3 of Flagshaming, where I look at state flags, shame the bad designs, and offer my improvements. Today we'll finally be done with the colonies, so let's get at them. Number 11. New York. The Pennsylvania state joke from episode 1 wasn't terribly funny, but what is funny is the fact that New York has a similar joke with the same punchline. If you're from New York, it's a point of pride that you aren't from New Jersey, which makes it all the more ironic that their flags are so similar. Both flags feature the personification of liberty towards the hoist with a becapped staff, and neither has a defined aspect ratio or its own Wikipedia page. They each have to share one with their coat of arms, since the flag is just that on a bedsheet. Shame! Additionally, New Jersey's state flag has a yellowish field, and so did New York into the 20th century. This was their flag design from 1778 to 1901. The crest is an eagle, because Murica! Liberty is curb-stomping a crown representing monarchy, and Justice is coming perilously close to stabbing that eagle with her sword. Maybe people in blindfolds shouldn't handle sharp objects. Just a suggestion. And why is Liberty's Phrygian cap the sorting hat? I'm not even making this up. That was the first thing I noticed about her. It's even got the eyes and a mouth. Speaking of faces where they don't belong, I'd now like to draw your attention to that sun overlooking the Hudson River in the center of the escutcheon. Yes, it has a face on it like a schoolchild drew it, and it doesn't look happy to be there. See, even part of the flag is embarrassed to be on such a bad flag. New York, if you want to continue saying you're better than New Jersey, you gotta do something about that SOS. I started this redesign by getting rid of everything outside of the escutcheon. Then I got rid of the land, the boats on the Hudson, and that unfortunate-looking face on the sun, leaving just the river, the sky, and the sun itself. I went with orange, white, and blue, because these were the colors of the Dutch flag when New York was first settled by them, and the sun has 11 rays of light because it's the 11th state. I purposely made them long and pointy to evoke the points on the Statue of Liberty's crown. Number 12. North Carolina. This was the first flag of North Carolina, adopted in 1861, but 24 years later it was changed to this to look more like the Confederate flag, which, as a reminder, looked like this, not this. The dates May 20th, 1775 and April 12th, 1776 are the dates of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence and the Halifax Resolves, respectively, which were both major events for the state in the American Revolution. The star represents North Carolina, as do the letters N and C on either side of it. Normally I'd complain about that sort of thing, but in the world of state flag design, it's a show of incredible restraint to only put your initials on your flag and not your entire name. On the other pole, there's still way too much writing on this flag, and it looks like the stars and bars, so yeah. Shame! Because this is a Confederate look-alike flag, I scrapped the whole thing to start from scratch, and whenever I do that, I begin by looking up the state's symbols. This is when I learned that North Carolina has a state carnivorous plant, the Venus flytrap, which is native only to the state's green swamp. The fact that they even have a state carnivorous plant is pretty neat, but all the cool kids know that pitcher plants are where it's really at. They also have a state fossil, the megalodon tooth. That's what inspired this redesign. Happily enough, I already had this black and white flag from a previous project to start from. The triangles issuant from the hoist are sort of a stylized shark tooth pointing to the fly. The white star still represents North Carolina, and the two smaller yellow stars stand for the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence and the Halifax Resolves. 3 stars with 4 points each make a total of 12 points for the 12th state. The colors are the 4 from the current flag. Between the Venus flytrap and the state fossil being a shark tooth, bitey jaws seem to be a state theme, so I also made this second design. It uses the red, white, and blue of the current flag, and the 12 diamonds for the 12th state turn the top and bottom stripes into a chompy mouth. Take your pick. Number 13. Rhode Island. Alright, last of the 13 colonies, and it's pretty good. The anchor in the center and the banner below it symbolize hope, which is also the state's one-word motto. The 13 stars around it stand for the 13 colonies, as well as the fact that Rhode Island was the 13th state. The yellow border represents fringe. Seriously, though, you'll often see the flag depicted with a yellow border on 3 sides, but the official flag statute says, quote, "The flag shall be edged with yellow fringe," unquote. That's what the border is there to convey. It's also got the most insane ratio of any flag we've looked at yet. 29:33. This is what you get when your official statute specifies 5'6" by 4'10", or those proportions. If I were to try to improve this flag, I'd start by removing the banner. The anchor already represents hope, we don't need a label right under it to serve the same purpose. This is a reference to the Bible verse Hebrews 6:18, quote, "Hope we have as an anchor for the soul," unquote. It's also fitting since Rhode Island's nickname is the Ocean State. Next, I would make either the symbols or the background blue, because gold on white just doesn't have enough contrast. It raises the question then why they changed their flag in 1897, because this was the previous design. Between the two, I'd definitely take blue on white. The field may look a little empty, but I just can't see a ring of gold stars on a blue field without thinking of the EU. Gold on blue also looks too similar to Indiana for my tastes. Number 14. Vermont. You know what? I'm gonna start docking points every time someone uses a blue field. Shame! It's a flag, not the wall of a hunting lodge for rich weirdos. Don't put a severed deer head on it. Underneath, on the escutcheon, we've got a pine tree for the same reasons as Massachusetts, and represents Vermont's forests. Oddly, though, the pine tree is not Vermont's state tree. That'd be the sugar maple from which they derive maple syrup. Syrup and the eastern white pine are unofficial symbols of Vermont, meaning that the official state flag shows the unofficial tree, and the official tree gives the unofficial waffle topping. Vermont, get your shit together. At the base of the tree, they've got a cow and 3 sheaves of wheat, which they can trade for one of any resource of their choosing if they build a settlement at the right harbor, which makes it unfortunate that they're the only state in New England with no coastline. At the bottom is a ribbon with the state motto, and the supporters are pine needles worn by American combatants at the Battle of Lake Champlain. The whole thing's a mess. If I lived in Vermont, this is the flag I'd fly. It's called the Green Mountain Boys flag because it was the regimental flag of the Vermont militia known as the Green Mountain Boys in the American Revolution. Ironically, it has a natural constellation in the canton made of 13 stars for the 13 colonies, even though Vermont wasn't one of them. There have been multiple proposals over the years to make this the official flag of Vermont, but obviously none succeeded. Like the flags of New York and New Jersey, Vermont's also lacks a defined aspect ratio, so I made it 2-3. Centrally located is a green mountain, since the name Vermont comes from the French Vermont, translating to Green Mountain. The white pine, unsurprisingly, represents white pine, their unofficial tree. In the canton is a ring of 13 stars for the 13 colonies, and a 14th in the center for Vermont. The strange shape comes from Vermont's third flag from 1837 to 1923. Number 15. Kentucky. This is the third flag to be the entire state seal, complete with words, on an otherwise featureless background, the worst kind of SOS. The state seal of Kentucky shows a frontiersman shaking hands with a statesman. Local lore has it that the former is Daniel Boone, who played a prominent role in the settling of the state, while the latter is Henry Clay, their most famous statesman. But really the two figures represent all pioneers and politicians. Around them is the state motto, United we stand, divided we fall. It's on a blue field, so -1 point for that. Below it is goldenrod, the state flower, and above are the words Commonwealth of Kentucky, in a font that's hard to read even as a flat static image on a computer screen 2 feet in front of my face. The worst part is that this flag was designed by an art teacher of all people. Shame on Kentucky, shame on their flag, shame on that art teacher, and shame on whatever school was paying them because they probably weren't getting their money's worth. The ratio is a rather obscure 10-19, and while I haven't found anything to confirm my suspicion, I'm almost certain that this is a nod to the national flag, which uses the same proportions. No one picks 10-19 just because. Pull up a chair. In 1687, British Secretary of the Admiralty Samuel Pepys declared that flags should be made a yard long for every breadth of bunting used in their construction. Bunting at the time was 22 inches wide, so 22 by 36 yielded the ratio of 11 by 18, nearly the golden ratio of 1 by 1.618. As time went on, the width of bunting decreased, but because flags were still measured in yards, the ratio gradually elongated. By 1837, the ratio was 2:1, which is why the flags of Britain and former British territories tend to use that ratio, but America split away in the 1700s when bunting was 19 inches wide. As a result, the American flag has the proportions 19 by 36, or roughly 10-19. U.S. flag code, however, does not specify any ratio, and although there is an executive order dictating 10-19 for certain specific military uses, the federal government uses flags in a number of other ratios, including 2-3, 3-5, and 5-8, and citizens are free to do whatever we please with our flag, especially since flag code's not legally enforceable and doesn't supersede the First Amendment anyway. Gods bless America. When people hear the name Kentucky, they only think of 2 things: bluegrass and horse racing. You can keep your boring blue field as a field of bluegrass, and the goldenrod is a nice touch, so even though I think gold on blue flags are a bit overused, I'll let you get away with it this once. I made the goldenrod into the shape of an inverted horseshoe for good luck and to represent racing. They're joined at the bottom to represent unity and the embrace of the pioneer and the statesman. If you want more horse, I made you this variant flag with more horse. Just pick one. You've actually got a week to choose, because that's all for today. There's a link to the subreddit page for my redesigns in the description, along with a link to my Twitter. I'll be back for episode 4 next week, and there's a new episode of How Fascinating on Wednesday. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.